I'm getting ready to start a new project. It's a 76 Corvette. I'm going to take the body off, get all the rest off the frame, upgrade things like the fuel lines, brake lines, and just kind of refresh it. I'm not doing a restore because it isn't stock as it sits, and it's not going to be stock when I'm done. One of the things that I want to do, this has the standard steering that came with the 76 Corvettes, so it's got a manual gearbox and a hydraulic assist that works off of a valve as you turn the steering to give you the power assist. It's kind of leaky, and one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to put a Borgeson box on it, which has the power steering built into the steering gear. If you followed my last project, which I did quite a number of years ago, it was a 74 Corvette, and I took the standard manual steering box with power assist off of it, and I put on a rack and pinion conversion. Well, that rack and pinion conversion resulted in a bigger turning radius than with the standard steering, so the Borgeson probably will not result in a bigger steering radius, so that's why I'm going with that versus rack and pinion. There's really nothing wrong with the steering on the 76 as it came from the factory, and when it's in good condition as this is, except for leaks, it is very tight. I really don't notice a difference between it and the rack and pinion that I put on my 74, other than, as I said, the steering radius is tighter on this than it is with the rack and pinion. So I'm trying to get a picture here of the hydraulic ram that gives the power assist to the steering, and there it is. As I said, it works fine, and when it's in good shape, it is tight. No play in the steering whatsoever, but you have to deal with the leaks, and that's why I'm going to go with the Borgeson conversion, I believe. Anything I say as I'm doing this introduction video is liable to change, because I've been going through thoughts of what I want to do with this. I do want it to be a little quicker, and there's a number of ways you can do that. You can change the transmission, get better gears that way. You can make the engine quicker, get more quickness that way. You can also change the rear end gears. So I don't know, I'll probably do at least one of those. I think the engine is probably going to get heads with larger valves. It already has headers on it, but I'm going to replace those because these are rusted. And I don't know about the gears yet or the transmission. One of the thoughts I had was to convert it to a 5-speed, which would give me a lower first gear and an overdrive. The cost of that, though, is going to end up being about $5,000, and $5,000 is a lot to put in a car that you put a couple hundred miles a year on. I don't know that that's a good investment. I'm not really worried about gas mileage, so potentially the rear end is a way to get it to be quicker. Get a lower gear ratio back there. That would hurt gas mileage, but with only putting a few hundred miles on it a year, who cares? So I am going to put the car down on the left. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, I almost forgot. When I did my 74, I had trouble reaching the top of the bolt that that connects the leaf spring in the back to the trailing arm. And somebody pointed out that there is a hole in that top of that, and you could just put a socket down there. Well, that wasn't an option on the 74 because I'd already taken the weight of the body off of it, and that bolt was at an angle, and it wouldn't take a socket through that hole. So the other day I was down here just looking at it, deciding what to do, and I decided to try and see if with the body on I could do that. And what I think I'm finding out is that that hole isn't big enough to get a socket in there. And I brought, it appears to be an 18 or 19 millimeter bolt head on that, the bolt that connects the trailing arm to the spring. So I'm going to try and see if I can get one through there, and if that's possible, then one of the first things I'm going to do is disconnect that spring from the trailing arm. So I'm checking this out. It looks like a 13/16 wrench fits on it, but it's got a little bit of play. And there you can see the hole through the top of the trailing arm. I'm not going to try to take this off right now. I have to move the car because when I put it on the ramps, I didn't get it centered enough. But as you can see, the 13/16 is a little bit loose. The 3/4 won't go on it. And that's one of the things about the 76. I think it was in the transition between metric and standard bolts on cars. So it could be that that's like a 20 metric. Now I tried an 18 millimeter socket down through that hole. It might be able to be pounded through, but I'm not going to do that because it might not come out if I get it in there. But definitely if you go bigger than that, which is what you're going to have to do here, it's not, the socket's not going to fit through there. So maybe they've changed it since 74, but the way it sits right now, it's going to have to come off by having a wrench on that top of that bolt, and then take this nut off on the bottom. So while I'm under here, let me show you some of the condition of the car. Tough to do with all the stuff I've got in the way. I've got drip trays under here right now. Maybe I should pause this and move that, but not getting a very good picture right here. I'm going to pause this and move the drip trays so that I can get better pictures. Okay, so I've got some of the drip trays out of the way. I be able to get a better view of some of this stuff down here. Shocks in the back appear to be relatively new, and they would be relatively easy to change, so if they appear to be good, I won't be replacing them. I may go for, if I can get in a picture here, on these struts that go from basically the differential to the wheels. They control your alignment, your camber in the back. Possibly I'll replace those with heim joints. That's what I have on the 74, and I really like them. They made it easy to adjust. On this, to adjust the camber, you have to loosen that bolt there and then rotate it, and that washer you see there is not centered, basically. The hole in it's not centered, so as you rotate it, it actually pushes that out further or pulls it in. And that's a little harder to adjust than, you know, putting it on there and then turning the shaft. So I don't know what I'm going to do there. Looking at the frame, there's breast on it, of course, for what is it, 76, 40-some-year-old car. And I noticed there's the fuel lines. Somebody has replaced part of them with copper and put union joints and connected them to the existing steel lines. I will end up replacing the lines all the way, making sure they can last a long time. Transmissions in these cars tend to leak. I never have been able to get my 74 to stop completely. I've got it slowed down quite a bit, and in it's not the transmission that came in the car. It was originally in a Buick or an Oldsmobile or something like that. I don't even recall at this point, but the shift lever here, there's a gasket there that, or a seal that goes in, that is a source of leaks. Of course, the pan can always be a source of leaks, but I don't even know if I can get a picture of it here. There's where the speedometer cable goes into the rear of the transmission shaft, which is really hard to get to. Jeez, it's even harder on this than on the 74. I can't even see it. Anyway, there is where the speedometer cable goes in, there's a thing, they call it a bullet, that goes into the transmission. It has the gears that you can change out those gears depending on what your rear axle ratio is, so that your speedometer is correct, and that's a source of leaks as well. On the driver's side here, we have some wires hanging down that go to, I believe goes back to the battery and powers the alarm. Those I'll put up out of the way. But one of the difference between this and the 74 is the floor pan in these is metal. In the 74, it is fiberglass. So There's a little bit of rust on this. It's not too bad, really. So I'll be cleaning that up and putting some 415 or some other rust preventative coating on it, and as well as the frame. So there will be a considerable amount of work involved in trying to remove the rust from the frame and then recoating it. Recoating it's really not the hard part. Removing the rust is. But I want it to last a long, long time after I'm gone. Even, I didn't mention that my son was born in '76, so this is the year of his birth, and I'm thinking I'm going to pass this on to him at some point, as soon as he gets a place where he can put it in a garage. So the engine doesn't appear to be leaking too much oil or anything, and other than I know it's a 350 and it is the serial number that came with this car. So it's the original engine. I have no idea whether it's a 2-volt main, 4-volt main, and that sort of stuff. So I will find that out. And like I said, I'm thinking about putting a cam in it, although it appears to have a crane cam in it already. At least there's a sticker on the inside the engine compartment that says it is a crane cam. I don't know what it is. In terms of lift and duration or anything like that. So, and they are the original heads, so they have the small valves. So, you know, with the upgrade to different heads, I'm probably looking at a different cam. But we'll see. Like I said, the suspension is tight. One of the problems, though, that I've had is occasionally you hit a bump and the thing will start vibrating like crazy. And, you know, I've checked all the ball joints and the tie rod ends and all that, and everything's tight. So I don't know what the problem is. I've even changed wheels with my 74 because these are Krager mags and they don't fit without spacers, and I'm thinking it's hard to get them mounted so that they're exactly on center. So I don't know. One of the things, though, that I was looking at the other day is I'm looking at the A-frames, and it's possible that maybe these bushings in the A-frame are the problem, so I'm probably going to replace those. Probably go with polyurethane. Make it good and tight. I do like to autocross, so you need to have a tight suspension. When I have run this car, it's been pretty good, though. Fuel pumps on these things are connected to the fuel line with these formed rubber hoses, and those things can be a bear. So I'm going to try and see on my 74, if you've seen any of the videos on it, I actually put in an electric fuel pump. This one is a little bit different animal, though, and I don't know what's available for it. The fuel pump, or the fuel supply, comes out the top of the tank on this one. On the 74, it came out the bottom, so you could make it gravity feed to the fuel pump and then, you know, an electric fuel pump. And that kind of cured my problem I had with vapor lock. These are susceptible to vapor lock because if you look at the fuel pump,
it gets heated up by the headers, and you can't see it very well from underneath, but it gets heated up by the headers, and the gas that now has the alcohol in it boils off pretty easy, gives you vapor lock. So I've had a lot of problems. I've had vapor lock on this one. Never really stranded me. You can dump cold water on the fuel pump and it gets you going. But it's a pain when you're sitting at a light after you just stopped for a couple minutes to fill up with gas, and all of a sudden you die because you have no fuel supply because the pump can't pump vapor, it needs liquid. So at the very least, I'll end up putting some kind of an assist on here to at least feed raw gas to the fuel pump if it does vapor lock. So, you know, there's a couple ways you can do that. And if you look at the video where I did my 74 conversion to electric, you can put an assist to pump raw gas to the fuel pump. You can go totally electric. Or you put it on a switch and turn it on only when you need it. You know, so we'll do something to prevent me from getting stranded with vapor lock, that's for sure. So I think that's all you can see from down here. There's the power steering pump. Okay, I accidentally closed the screen on my camera and shut it off. So there's the fuel pump. I'm sorry, the power steering pump. And I don't know whether it's leaking a little bit or whether it's from all this other stuff, but there is some wetness around it. I'll have to check that out. Motor mounts were bad on my 74. I probably will put polyurethane motor mounts, and that I don't think is a problem in this in terms of the vibration when I hit a pump, because generally if a motor mount's bad, when you rev the engine will rock a lot. You know, it'll pull over to one side, and I haven't noticed that. And you can actually see it sometimes on the transmission lever, because the whole thing torques it over. So that's about it from under here. I'm going to take it down off the lift and show you the top of it. So I mentioned before that I didn't do a very good job of putting this on the ramps on the lift. There's the passenger side tire actually hanging over the ramp a little bit, and there's the driver's side tire nowhere near the edge. And the problem that creates is this is a bridge jack, and it slides on the ramps, and this will run into the tire, and I can't get it all the way under, so I've got to move that a little bit. And I wasn't driving the car because it has a hole in the radiator, small one. I probably could have driven it because there was enough fluid. It was near the top. It probably would have been okay. I just would have lost a little fluid every time I drove it, but I have another Corvette, so no need to drive it. At any rate, so I kind of parked it, and the battery on my 74 needed replaced. So I stole the battery out of this one and put it in the 74. So now I've got to try to push this car back and forth on the ramp and maneuver it a little bit to get it centered, or at least centered enough that I can slide the bridge jacks. The paint, as near as I can tell, is original, except for on the rear and front bumpers. It's in pretty good shape. A nick here and there, like right here, one nick. But I don't want to
invest in repainting it. I'd rather have the original paint job. So I have two of the bridge jacks, and as you can see maybe here how close that is to running into the back tire. This one may actually fit, but the front one is definitely not going to fit. So I'm going to lower it the rest of the way and see if I can maneuver it and get it more centered on the ramps so that when I drop the frame from underneath the body, I can put it back up. I can kind of center the new chassis or the refreshed chassis under it, and hopefully that'll work well for me. That is where the battery would be. As you can see, it's missing, which presents me with potentially some problems in trying to do this refresh. I can't roll down the windows or anything like that, but disconnecting the battery would have been number one job anyway in this project, because you don't want to be turning your wrenches and hitting a live wire. One of my sons unfortunately hit the battery across his wedding ring and severely burned his finger. Ruined the ring. It had to be cut off his hand. But you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. So that's what the interior looks like. Those are not 76 seats. They're from somewhere 78 to 82. I'm going to pop the hood now and show you what's under there. Okay, there's the engine. It's got a little bit of chrome on it. Master cylinder, that's all going to have to be disconnected. As I said, it has a sticker that it has a crane cam. I don't know if it really does. And, you know, I'll have to get that radiator out of there. It looks like somebody has already replaced the radiator support. The car does have air conditioning. It hasn't worked since 2005 when I bought the car, so I don't think there's any Freon in it. The compressor kicks on and off. You can see it work, but no air comes out of it, so I'm pretty sure that Freon's all been leaked out over the years. I'm thinking about, instead of fixing this one, going and getting a vintage air that uses the new coolant that is more friendly to the environment. So I'm going to put a fair amount of money into the car. Fortunately, I have the funds to do it. So it will be an interesting project, I'm sure. One of the things I like to do as I'm taking it apart is to tell you what size wrench you need for each and every bolt that I take out. I try to remember that. I don't script any of my videos, so what I say is what pops into my mind at the time, and occasionally I'll call a distributor, see, I can't even say it, a carburetor or something like that, so just forgive me if I misname something. It's probably because I'm tired, and like I said, nothing's scripted. I just talk as I'm doing it. So anyway, that is going to be the project. So my first task, and I'm not going to video it, is to try to maneuver this car by pushing it at my ripe old age to get it to where I can get the bridge jacks underneath it without running into the tires. Once I get that done, that'll probably be it for the day, and the end of this video will be pretty much right now, because I noticed I don't have too much time left on the battery, but I think I've said just about everything. Last I tried it, the vacuum system for the headlights did work, but we'll be making sure those work. The controls over there, I forget what they're called right at this moment, but they're vacuum canisters basically that open and close the windshield or the headlights. They look pretty new, so I don't think I'll have to do anything there, but I have rebuilt them on my 74, and they're not that hard to rebuild. What else? Can't think of anything off the top of my head. So I'm going to get to trying to move this, and hopefully the next video will be not too long in coming, and I'll actually be starting to tear it apart. Thanks for watching. Okay, one of the things that prevented me from raising the body off of the 74 was there was a rubber catch basin in here with a drain that if you overflowed the fuel tank, it would go to a hose and go onto the ground. There appears to be a rubber thing in here, but it doesn't appear to be in any way connected to the body. So I think we're good on that. By the way, this is the same day I did get the car more centered on the lift. You can see the gap between the wheel and the edge of the ramp there. That's the driver's side. I'll go over to the passenger side. It's much more equal than it was, so I'll be able to slide those bridge jacks down under the car as I need to. Well, since I didn't bring my tripod for the camera, come on camera, focus. I didn't bring the tripod for the camera, and I'm running out of minutes to record anyways. I'll just do some of the easy things. I'll take off the air cleaner, and this is, I guess, a good time to talk a little bit about some of the things that don't work on here. One is the tachometer, and when I was playing around with my 74, which has a mechanical tach, I actually put a an HEI distributor in there, and it had a connection for an electric tach on it, as well as for a mechanical tach. And in the process of doing that, for some reason, I hooked up the handheld tach I have, electric, of course, to this car. And I couldn't get the handheld to work, so I was like, okay, is my tach bad? My handheld one? And I hooked it up to the 74, and the handheld tach did work. So I'm thinking the problem with this tach might be the electrical connection inside the distributor, which is under here. So that's one of the things I'm going to look at. So we have the normal quadrajet carburetor on this that's stock. I have rebuilt it in the past, and it's running okay with that. Right now I'm taking off the shrouding for the distributor,
It's nothing more than a decorative piece. One of the things that I am going to have to do here is figure out how to, or where to put parts. When I did the 74, I didn't have that tractor there, and I put the body over there. I put it on a dolly and moved it over there. This one, since I can't use that space, I'm thinking of, I have these posts, and I'm thinking of stringing a 2x8 or so between those two posts and bolting it on, and just letting the body sit up there while I work on the chassis. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to have to buy some lumber to do it. Those 2x8s up there, that's what I used to put some ratchet tie downs wrapped around it, and I supported the body on that to take it off, moved the chassis out of the way, and then moved the dolly for the body under it, put the lift back up under it and attached it, and removed the straps and dropped it down. Like I said, I'm just going to this time leave it set up there, I think. We'll see how that goes. Those two little thumb screws over there were bolted on to this chrome trim piece. That's all that held it on, and that covers the HEI distributor. These two chrome covers that cover the spark plug wires going down just attached to the chrome cover with that little hole and these thumb screws. So they come off easily once you've got all that other stuff out of the way. Okay, I am going to take all these spark plug wires off at the same time. I'll do that by, and this is an aftermarket piece, so that if you've got a stock Corvette, you're not going to have it. I put this on myself. There are wire looms down here, and I'm having a little difficulty. There you go. There's a wire loom that they run next to the valve cover, and it's held on the wire loom by the valve cover. So this car has these easy to remove valve cover hold downs. I'm just going to pull off all of the spark plug boots from the spark plugs, and I'm going to take that all off as one piece. When I take out those hold downs, this, as you can see, it's already loose in the back. Everything will come out at once. On the top of the distributor, there's a couple latches here. I don't know if I can get them off by hand, but a screwdriver gets behind there pretty easily and pops them off. And you can just lift this whole loom off of the distributor cap, and that way all your spark plugs are in order. But as I said, this is not the stock setup. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's one more hold down here, which I might have to get a little wrench to take off because it doesn't have this wing on the top because it interferes with the air conditioner compressor. But I'll go over there and I'll take those two off, and then I'll release these two tabs and just pull it all off as one. So I've got all the boots off of the spark plugs on this side, and I just heard something fall down under. Oops, I didn't take this connector off yet.
Okay, a 5/16 wrench fit on the end of that. And that comes off pretty easily. And I see that this is where you have to pay attention to detail. I heard something drop before, and looks like this has 2 washers on it. The first one I took off only has 1, so that washer is unsure what fell. So this whole loom's going to come out of here for me. I'm going to go do that on the other side. I might have to move a couple of those vacuum lines over there. But then I'll release those 2 clips and we'll just pull that off as one. So while I was down here disconnecting the spark plug wires, I also disconnected the temperature sensor wire because that's going to be attached to the body and the engine's going to stay in the frame, so that's eventually going to have to come out anyways before I can take the body off. So I got all those off. I'll have to see if I can wiggle this set of wires out of here. Hard to do with one hand. There's the end of the loom starting to come. I didn't have to disconnect any of the vacuum lines. So now all I've got to do is get a screwdriver in and open these 2 latches and pry that up. It's going to take both hands. I can get the latch on this side released by hand. Oh, there's the other one. Okay. And now all of these wires are going to be connected. So I'm going to have to put the camera down and, well, maybe not. There they come. They are a little stuck on there from heat, but okay. There, the loom is off. Spark plug wire looms for that run alongside the valve covers. While I'm at it here, here's the ignition wire that's got to be disconnected from the distributor. And the other wire is the tack wire. So I'm going to get rid of that. Okay. So next step will be to remove this cover and see what we see in the coil. Okay, there's 2 little screws with 1/4-inch heads that hold this cover on. One of them is here, one is here. Once you get those off, you can just lift this cover off and the coil is exposed. Now, I need to get to the other side to look at the connections for the tack. Okay, while I was over here, I noticed that I hadn't yet disconnected the distributor connection. There's 2 little tabs that need to be pulled out. And then it just pushes down.
those connect the coil to the internals of the distributor. Is what it is. Probably don't need that to pull the engine or pull the body off, because it's only connected from the distributor cap to the distributor. But when I end up pulling the distributor, which I will, that'll need to be off. So there, that's off. I don't see anything that looks too terribly alarming in terms of the tack wire, which I believe is this yellow one, because that's where the tack connector is. However, it's all going to be related to the connections that go to the distributor. So there may be something wrong in the distributor that's causing the tack not to fire. I'll have to see. I'll have to come up with another way to test that. To remove the coil, if necessary, I'll just take off these 4 bolts, and that coil will lift right out, and be able to pull these wires up and take a good look at them. But for now, it's still a mystery as to why the tack doesn't work. May be a problem with the tack after all, but as I said, I was unable to get the tack, the handheld tack, to work on this car, and it worked on the 74, so maybe I just didn't get it connected right, but I think I did, because I had the proper type of connector, which is this, on a jumper wire, and then I connected the tack to the jumper wire. So, and that's the way I did it on both cars. As of right now, I don't see a reason why that won't work. I'll have to come up with another way to test both this and the tack in the car. Okay, I show 1 minute of battery time left on my recorder, so I'm done for today.